Welcome to One Insight. My name is Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything.
What you're about to hear is a really fascinating conversation. I sat down with one of my clients who was born blind. He's been blind for the 30 years of his life. And I draw out from him the lessons in that, the struggles he's had, the insights that he can't yet see until I draw them out, the gifts that he has that it's hard for him to see. He's an extraordinary leader, extraordinary manager, extraordinary coach. But as you'll hear me say in a minute, there are three mysteries to the universe: birds to the air, fish to water, and humans to themselves. And sometimes it needs someone who can listen to you so deeply, they can draw out your story in a way that you can't even hear or see it. I really enjoyed this session. It was really fun. What you'll notice towards the end is as I'm trying to share his story, I have to go into a different space. It's almost like I'm channeling it. I've got 4 pages of notes in front of me and I'm drawing out his story and articulating it. And I can hear in the background my son who's beginning to sing. He's 6 years old. He starts peeking through the door. And I want to stay as present as I can. And sometimes it's 2020. We're all used to kids interrupting us. But I'm actually signaling him with my hand, just keep out. Because I want to stay really present to this. And he did. He listened and he stayed out. But you may hear a little bit of singing at the end. There's a little technical glitch midway where Parham's line crackles a couple of times. It's only for a moment, but I didn't want to stop the recording. It just felt so powerful. So enjoy. You can feel from my energy right now. I've literally just finished. Now I'm recording the intro. It was really fun conversation. I love this man. He's doing extraordinary work in the world. Enjoy. Well, hi, Parham. Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
Hey. Good morning. So what we're doing today is a session that I call Branded by Litvin. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because I'm not a branding expert, but what I have become really good at is drawing out people's stories. I know how to listen really deeply and I know how to listen between the words. And there are 3 mysteries in the universe: birds to the air, fish to water, and humans to themselves. So often, particularly those things that we are extraordinarily gifted at, we find it really hard to see them ourselves. And so what I'm going to do is listen to what your gifts are and who you are and who you've been all your life and reflect that back into you in a way to see how it lands with you and a way to see how can we share that story out there in the world so people really get who you are. How's that sound?
That's great.
Okay, cool. So let's start this way, because if people are listening, they may not know this. And even if they're watching, they may not know this. You can't see, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was born blind 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Where were you born?
I'm originally from Iran, and I grew up there for 26 years before relocating to Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Nice. What was it like as a child growing up?
It was interesting in a way. I was basically the only blind child in our family, and my family didn't really have much of an experience or much of a role model. So it was like do it as we go kind of thing. And I had to basically, for most of my life, fight for, I want to do this by myself. And like there was a whole lot of overprotectiveness from the side of my family around like, oh yeah, what if you hurt yourself while you were doing this or going out or anything like that. So that was for most of my life until I got to when I was 14.
So can I slow you down a second? Hold on that 14-year-old thought. And I want to take you back a little bit. Sometimes when someone comes into a child and they have a unique way of being in the world, parents react differently. They can be overprotective. They can try and pretend it doesn't exist. There's all sorts of ways of showing up. It sounds like, and I know this as well, I had an overprotective mother. And what was it like having to fight for what feels like your independence constantly for the first 14 years?
I think it was... I think around like 7 or 8 years old, I realized that it's because they care, which didn't really make it easier. Because like if this is out of like malicious intent, then you're like, oh yeah, this person is just like not a good person. But like, what do you say to someone who is being overprotective because they care about you? And so like from that moment on, it became more of a, oh, okay, so I'll just prove that I can do this. And then maybe they'll at some point start, like maybe it will shift the scales. And at that point, they will be like, okay, if he could do these 10 things, maybe he can do this 11th thing too.
Yeah.
And that never actually happened. But like in hindsight, I could say that. But like at that time, I was more like, if I go and repeatedly do this, at some point, it's going to just tip the scales.
And it's interesting because I can relate to that one too. Trying to prove myself has been a story of mine for a long, long time. And it's only dawned on me in recent years that actually it wasn't anybody else I needed to prove myself to. It was myself. I wasn't confident in me. Yeah. If I'd been confident, it wouldn't have mattered whether they approved of me or not, or it was just the internal work I needed to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I've also realized recently in the like, and also like the more I get into coaching tactics and techniques itself, the more I realize how to go even deeper on that. And like the more I work with my own coaches, the more I try to focus on, because like I feel like now it's become a habit. This habit of proving yourself to other people. Mm-hmm. It's less of a conscious thing and more of like an unconscious thing that I just do.
Yeah.
And now it's mostly about answering the question, what do I want? And I find it really, really hard. Because I'm just not practiced in answering that question.
That's really great. That's a great insight. And you're not alone. It is actually very hard for people to ask for what they want. Most children are raised to not ask for what they want, or if they do ask for what they want, they're told that they can't have it. So you're not alone in that. But thanks for sharing that. So at 8, you get this realization. What happened at 14? There was a story there.
Yeah, so like at 14-year-old, when I was 14, I started playing around with computers. I was a very introverted child, and I think most of that was because I just couldn't find the ways to communicate without shrinking back from that feeling of pity that I was receiving like from my environment, basically. And then so like I started playing around with computers. I developed this game for the blind because I was really into games and I wanted to be able to play them. And that was like an audio game, which was basically you would be able to play it without looking at the screen. And that was what introduced me to programming, and the reason I was going there was because this brought the first biggest fight in between me and my family, basically in asserting what I wanted to do. Because at that point, that was the point where I was like, oh yeah, I need to go into computers and like computer science and software engineering. And they were like, no other blind person has done this before. That's not safe. There are no books. There are no teachers. You're stupid. So like that was the first time that I started, like that I understood what I wanted and started pushing for it. Yeah. And that was one of the first time that I actually succeeded in doing that. And I'm basically where I am right now just because of that decision. Because if I had gone into any other thing, I wouldn't have been like a company wouldn't have hired me and relocated me to a completely different country.
Yeah. So how hard was that at that age to push for what you want?
Super hard. I think it took me 2 years.
Yeah.
And as I said, the fact that I couldn't just say, you know what, I just hate you guys was making it harder, because like I just didn't have the skills or the vocabulary or the ability to flex far enough to persuade people like what I wanted. So the way that actually ended up fixing itself was my dad finally like randomly meeting this guy who said like, well, this is totally new and no one has done this before, but I'm willing to give it a try, and you could bring your son to this school. And the fact that like someone else outside of our circle thought this might be like an interesting thing to try, that was what kind of like shifted the balance a bit.
Nice. Well, let me just catch something, because whilst you call it totally random, if you hadn't had 2 years of working on your dad, he wouldn't have asked that question of that guy. So you created what looks like a random moment, was created by you.
Yes, true.
Yeah. So you go into computer science, software engineering. What age are you now?
So like I'm 30 now. In the middle.
Sorry, I mean in the story. Stay in the story.
Oh,
okay. You're 14. You started on this a couple of years later. Where are you now?
Yeah, I'm 17. It is true. I have no books. Studying is super hard. Everyone's drawing stuff on the board. The only thing I understand from classes is tap of the marker on the board. And so like what I'm doing in the meantime at home is I'm reading a whole ton of books. Like I would be reading like 3-4 books a week, because I use a screen reader, which basically reads the screen to me from the computer, and it can read super fast. And it turns out that your ears don't get tired as fast as your eyes do, because it's more of a passive sense. Like you just sit here and pay attention, and the content comes to you. And so like I was reading tons and tons of books about stuff that weren't taught in Iran, about software engineering, soft skills like communication, all of that. And at 18, I realized that I can't really take part in international exams, which is like something that you have to do in Iran to go to university, because the whole content is visual. So because I had done so much programming at home, I just went sideways, found basically a loophole, got another diploma just by doing the programming on site and getting a degree for it. And that's how I got into university, and started having the same kind of problems that I was having at school, and basically looking for a job 24/7, because I was like, this is the best way to get out of this circle is to find someone paying for me to use my skills instead of teaching me in a format that doesn't work. And then at 21, I found my first job. I basically was like, just give me the lowest pay possible or nothing if you don't want to. I'll just come work here. And that was my biggest mistake of the time, basically. But I quit university and then started going to work.
What was the mistake?
The mistake was selling myself. Okay. The mistake was the fact that I had received this message from the people around me that no one will hire you. Like, why would someone in this market that's saturated with someone like people who are sighted, why would they hire you? you are probably slower. You're probably requiring a lot more like hands-on help or help of any form. And then why would they like take on that extra burden if they don't have to? It's not like there is just one person and it's you and they have to do it. It's more like there is like, if they say no to you, there's thousands of other people waiting for a job. And so like the problem was that I went to the interview basically with that mindset. So the moment they told me that I was hired, I was like, just if you don't want to pay me, don't pay me. It's just like, I'm basically coming here to fight that idea in my head that no one will hire me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. How did they respond to that? What did they say? Did they take you up on your offer to be really lowly paid?
Yeah. In 2 weeks, they called, like my manager called me into his office and said, I'm going to increase your salary by 5 times. So then I became like basically a senior developer at day one. But like their very first offer was, yeah, totally. If you want to get a low pay, fine, let's go for it. And I think the problem there was that I had all these skills that I had worked on for 7 years at home. And I just gave this image of, please hire me. I'm not worth anything. Please just help. Even though I had those skills and it only took them 2 weeks to see it. And I was actually lucky that they did.
Well, you say lucky, but again, I don't think there's any luck in this story. It wasn't lucky they found that out. They could not find it out. You've been working for 7 years on this stuff. You just demonstrated it to them.
Yeah, I meant in the sense that it wasn't like I had met someone who just wanted to get the most amount of use out of people with the least amount of pay.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, there's a couple of things I hear behind this story, and tell me if I'm right. Number one, loopholes. You're a man who's used loopholes to make big jumps in your life and career because the traditional path didn't work for you. Like step by step up the rungs of the ladder, like everyone thinks they have to take. And it's not actually true for anyone, but we think we have to take it. So we follow that step-by-step path. But you look for loopholes where you can jump sideways. Like you weren't going to get into traditional university the way that things were set up. So you did programming on site and got this sideways skip into university. You knew that teaching the traditional way wasn't going to work for you. All you could hear was a tap, tap, tap on a whiteboard or a blackboard. Instead, you're going to take a sideways jump. You're going to look for a job. So number one, I hear this distinction of loopholes and jumps.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And the reason wasn't really that I was doing it like to get around or that to find a faster way. It was more like the normal way that I really wanted to take because I always wanted to be normal and like everyone else. That wasn't working.
Yeah, so isn't it interesting? For most people, unfortunately, the normal way seems to work, so they follow the normal path. You know, fortunately, it looked like the normal path couldn't work for you, so you looked for loopholes. Yeah. I'm just thinking ahead, wouldn't it be interesting for your clients if they have this gift of working with a man who his whole life has looked for loopholes? You help them to realize that, oh, you don't have to follow the traditional path that you think everyone else is on. Unfortunately for you, you don't have a way that seems to hold you back. It looks like this is easy for you. Unfortunately, that's wrong. And you help them to look for loopholes. It could be a really fun way to play.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
I'll keep that.
I love your smile. So the other thing I heard is the other side of this is what I'll call the universe gives you what you ask for. So you get this job, you're amazed that they take you, and you're so amazed because you don't think much of yourself. You say, hey, you can take me on for free or a pittance. And they go, all right then. Now, there it is. The universe will give you what you ask for. Now, you did get to work with some great people who saw the value that you bring and then wanted to compensate you because of that. 5x increase in salary in 2 weeks. But as well as seeing this idea about loopholes on the one side, there's also this other message which balances it out in some ways that the universe will give you what you ask for.
Yeah, that's true.
Beautiful. So at this stage, 2 weeks in, you got your 5x increase in salary. How old are you now?
I'm still 21.
Yep.
Quit university as soon as I got that increase because I was getting paid more than anyone else in my family was earning. And that was basically the first day that I had this taste of freedom that comes with earning money. And this wasn't cheap. This was for me, I always wished to buy an iPhone in Iran, and then with my salary, I could buy two. So for me, this was a big jump in my confidence and the freedom that I had. And there was this whole thing. Another thing is that I see dependence, and sometimes I'm conscious of it, but sometimes I'm not. I see dependence as a bad thing now because I've just had to fight against it for so long. And so every time I went to eat out, I would feel horrible because my parents had paid for that dinner or that lunch. Now I could just go and do that for whatever I wanted, whatever many times that I wanted. So that was a big jump in my confidence. But then the effects of me selling myself short in that very first interview was that my manager at the time knew that I had this internal script in my head that goes, no one else will hire you. These people are so kind and so nice, and they hired you and they are paying you what you're worth. So he started pushing on me to do work on weekends, extra hours, drop whatever you like to do and do what I tell you to do all the time. And so in about 2 years, I had this idea that this is so hard that I want to just go try and have some other interviews and just see how it goes. I'm not really sure how it's going to go. Probably people won't hire me, but let's see how that goes. And from the very first interview, I was really surprised once again to be facing the fact that people actually want to hire me and they are actually willing to pay me even more. And this was the very first time that I consciously realized that I had been holding myself back by this internal script of I can't do anything and I'm not worth much. So then I went to my second job, third job, nothing interesting here, skipping forward. In the meantime, I was basically applying to any company that I found that was in Europe because I always wanted to get out of Iran. And after 2 years of trying super hard, learning the skills, again, I had hit this problem of visuals. Everything was explained visually, so I had to figure out how do I learn in a way that isn't visual. And I found this company, which was a startup, which spent the time because they were beginning to actually make their website more accessible and teach me all of that. And then I basically got my job at the current company that I work at 4 years ago. And then I was yay, I've achieved my goal. I'm super happy. And then I moved to Amsterdam. And then the next day I was horribly sad because here I am, I've achieved my biggest goal in life. And all my life, this was the moment that I wanted to get to. And now that I'm here, it's not fun anymore. And I don't know what to do, what to do from here. So this was another, I think, defining moment in my life, because this was basically the moment that I learned if you put everything you have behind one goal and think that you will be happy once you attain it, there is going to be unhappiness on the other side, basically.
Nice catch.
Yeah, and from then on, it was, I realized that I just didn't like development anymore. I had become a much more social person. I loved talking to people now, and I could get my point across, and I could even if I got that initial feeling of pity, I had achieved so much that I could disregard it because my opinion of myself had improved a little bit. I was still not like self-confident that much. It was still like I had seen the pattern. Like the first sentence was, "Oh, you're so I don't know, like you're so brave. You're so great." And initially, I would be like, "No, but let me explain this." Like I've had 26, 27, 28 years of experience living like as a blind person. It's very different than you closing your eyes today. But like at some point, this pattern just I was like, "Oh, okay, this is just what people say in the very beginning, and it's very better. It's much better than people saying nothing and staying away because of not hoping not to offend me by being politically incorrect." Yeah. I became a manager.
So let me slow you down. Let me catch some things that I've heard you say. I'm writing a book right now, and the working title has changed a lot, but the current title is Success Hurts. And we're in a world where everyone chases success, but often you get the things that you've been chasing after for a very long time and find it doesn't give you the satisfaction you thought it would. And you felt that. You're in Amsterdam, you achieved everything you ever wanted. And that's the problem with I'll be happy when goals. It's usually not the case.
Yeah.
But we don't know that. We're taught to set goals. So take me from there. You have this insight, I'll be happy when you realize you're not. Suddenly there's overwhelming sadness the day you're out of Amsterdam, you achieved everything you ever wanted. And where are you now? Bring me to this moment in time, Parham.
Like now or in this?
Yeah, now. What do you do? What's your role as a leader in the organization you do?
I'm managing a team of developers working in core infrastructure of Booking.com. Core infrastructure is basically the thing that makes the whole website run. Mm-hmm. So I'm basically managing a team of 4 right now. Mm-hmm. And I've been a manager for like 2 years, and that's how I basically got introduced to coaching.
If we asked your team members and you put humility to one side, what would they say are your gifts?
I imagine, I'm not going to go there and say that it's probably wrong.
That's why I say put humility to one side. It's just you and me talking right now. It's not like anyone's listening. What would they say are your gifts?
I think they would say that I really care about them and I really have their back. I think that's one of my defining features. Like people come first, and if someone is feeling like, I have to do this work and I don't like it, and it's got to the point where I actually have this person now that she was working on something for a really long time and she was just tired, and I basically just forced her to say, "You go on a holiday, I'll figure out all the HR stuff because I know that this is not healthy for you." And this means extra trouble for me. But if a person's personal life would be affected, that's not something that I'd want to have on my conscience. So for me, I think the biggest thing that I hope people see is that people come first.
Yeah. People come first, you really care, and you've really got their back.
Yeah.
Give me one more. What's one other thing that people would say about Parham?
I think it's around the same theme, but I think it's a little bit different. But like this idea of everyone's idea matters is also very important to me. Like I don't want anyone to leave a meeting or a discussion or a one-on-one or even a small chat we were having in like over lunch and think I wasn't heard. Like if anyone told me that I feel like you're not listening to me, I would be stopping whatever I'm doing and saying, okay, I'm like listening. I'm going to try really hard to make you feel heard. So that's the second thing that I really try to do is like really make people heard, and like I don't know, you reflect what they say back to them so that they understand my willingness to try and listen.
So again, what people would say is that being on Parham's team, they know everyone's idea matters, and they know that because on the inside they just feel heard.
Yeah.
What's one way of thinking about things or approaching web development, core infrastructure, that's a differentiator for you? How do you see it in a way that most people don't?
I think most people see it as, and this is like developers, like as a developer, most people see it as, oh, I'm working with cool tech. I'm writing cool code. And then the problem with that is like, if you're not doing cool stuff, then you get demotivated. And there's always a company that will come to you with the name of some new tech and steal you from your current company, basically. The way I look at it is like the way I used to look at it when I was a developer was I help people through code. I'm not writing this code to be cool. I'm writing it so that someone's problem somewhere gets solved with it. And I'm basically the best way to motivate me is to put me in touch with someone who just used something that I created and said, it's great. It saved me 2 hours of time. I feel happy. I don't know. Thanks to you, I got this done a lot easier and like anything like that.
Great. What I hear behind that is that what most people think in the world that you're in is that if they're doing cool stuff, working with cool tech, using the latest technology, that'll be the motivating factor. What you've seen, the truth is that you're helping people through code. And when you can be in touch with the realization or even the person that has been helped by your code, that's the most powerful motivation out there.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm looking for right now, give me a couple of headlines. So this is where you look back at something you've done in your career, something you created that has people say, wow. And, again, you have to put humility to one side, but this product, we shipped it in this amount of time. It generated this amount of revenue. Something that's a headline that has people just open their eyes a moment and go, oh.
I think during my career, like at work, my biggest achievement has been okay, how can I say this without getting too techie?
Don't worry about it. Get techie. It's not for me.
Techie? Okay, great. So it's to create a deployment tool for this infrastructure thing called Kubernetes, which basically allows you to run as much of your application as you want, so that if people start really visiting your website isn't down. So I was leading the effort to create a deployment tool for that, so that other developers could deploy their code on it quickly and easily and safely, basically.
Okay, I'm going to use layman's language now. Would I be right? What you did is create a world-class deployment tool.
Yeah.
Good for you for owning that. That's great.
Thanks. It's hard.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm pushing you. Thanks for playing. Give me one more. What's one more headline, something that you, your team created, you're proud of?
I'm having trouble coming up with that in my work life. I think the problem is that I change projects like not very. I think in an earlier company, I I was also leading a team of developers who were working on a social media network for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we were basically working on the marketing side, where it would give you information on how many likes you got, who got to visit your posts and stuff like that. Interesting. I think the most interesting thing about this whole project for me was that I was leading the team that was creating this product, and I was actually like technically contributing to it too, without being able to see the data that it created. Like it wasn't like I could just go look at the graphs and be like, oh yeah, this is working. So like I had to figure out different ways of verifying that my code worked, that my team's code worked, and stuff like that.
Okay, let me ask you from a different direction for a second. What would your bosses say they are most impressed with? One thing that one boss would say, and as recent as you can get, this is the most impressive thing about what Parham does.
The most recent one that I've heard is, okay, I've heard two. The most two that I can remember, the most recent two that I can remember is I just today my manager was talking about my coaching abilities, and he was saying that I know how to make people feel recognized and want to grow and want to do more, and prevent them from quitting the company. I've had people on their exit interview say they would have left the company a year before if they hadn't randomly ended up in my team, as in like they hadn't come seeking me out and I hadn't gone seeking them out, but in their exit interview they were like, the thing that kept me in the company was my current manager. And so that's one, and the other one is like being able to hear and understand what my manager wants and turn it into a language that developers in my team understand. So like there is a gap between the two, and it seems like I'm good at like speaking the language of the both sides. So that because if I go to my developers and say, "Hey, my boss says do this," their very first reaction is like, "Tell your boss to."
Yep.
But like, so I have to make it sound convincing from their point of view as well. So like I've been commended on that too in the past often.
Well, that's great. What's the one thing that's held you back most in life and probably still does?
I'm not really good at uncertain situations. I guess most of my life I've been dealing with computers where something either works or doesn't work. There is no, if you leave it alone, it won't start working by itself or stop working by itself, or like all the computers behave the same when exposed to the same like code, let's say. But in life, it's a lot more ambiguous than that. And like, I don't know, for example, when it comes to a thing that that my manager wants, is pretty clear to turn that into something that, oh yeah, so it must act like this in this kind of like circumstances, and then go implement that. But when I'm, for example, dealing with something as uncertain as starting a coaching business, which is like some like business plus marketing plus sales plus coaching itself, like all of these are things that I've had like, well, minus coaching, I've had zero experience in the others. And like, I'm the kind of person who should go on a vacation with it completely like planned out. And now what I'm practicing is basically to learn to deal with uncertainty without it driving me completely insane.
Mm-hmm. So here's where this exercise is valuable, not just for speaking out to the world what you do for others, but also for seeing what you do for yourself. It's the mystery that you can't see yourself. I put it to you that you've been living under a misapprehension for a long time, that you're not good at uncertainty, that ambiguity is hard in the real world, but it's much safer in the world of software and engineering, computer engineering. So what I know about you is that you've found some really good tools for dealing with uncertainty and ambiguity. Number one, look for loopholes. Loopholes let you skip the normal way of doing things. Those poor normal, I'm doing I'm using inverted commas right now, speech marks. Poor normal people don't look for loopholes. You do. You know how to handle ambiguity and uncertainty. You look for loopholes. You also know what will hold you back in uncertain situations. It's when you play that game of the universe gives you what you ask for. So you actually, when you ask for what you want, turns out the universe rises up and offers it to you. But when you don't, it appears not to. You're not alone in that. So it makes sense to me that your gifts in the world of leading and managing really relate to that. You help other people navigate uncertainty and ambiguity because you help them understand that they come first. You really care about them. When you know someone really cares about you and you've got your back, you can deal with uncertainty and ambiguity. You help them understand that everyone's idea matters, and then they feel heard. And when you feel heard, you can deal with uncertain situations. You help them understand that their purpose is much bigger than using the latest cool tech. Their purpose is to help others. And when we know we're making a difference by helping others, wow, that feels really great and motivating. And then we can handle any kind of ambiguity or uncertainty. You're an amazing translator so that you can help developers understand what managers want and managers understand what developers need. And when you do that in both directions, you help them both navigate uncertainty. And you help people as a leader feel, recognize, want to grow and do more. So they'll stay in places and companies when life feels uncertain or they think they would have left even a year before because you've got their back. So I put it to you, my friend, you are far better at navigating uncertainty and ambiguity than you think, and you're extraordinarily gifted at helping others do it too. And it has nothing to do with the certainty, I'm doing air quotes again, the certainty of computers. You're an expert in ambiguity. You're an expert in uncertainty.
Well, now it's hard because now I have to go figure out what else is holding me back.
Nice. Well, that's a great game to play. So thanks for hearing that. It's nice to see how it lands. And suddenly it's like this, it was like we just inserted a little bit of new code into the system and the whole system has to rejig right now. It's like, whoa, I just up-leveled. What happened? I was a little avatar. I'm playing computer games with my kids for the first time now, and I'm the noob. They keep laughing at me, and they're the superheroes. But you just up-leveled from a noob to a superhero at the next level of the game.
I heard the coin dropping sound now.
Yes, perfect. So let me see if I can reflect this back in a way that positions who you are and what you do in the world. Because what's coming more and more is what we call coaching. For me, coaching is a tool, not a title. Too many coaches get too caught up in as I'm a coach. No, coaching is one of the tools you use. You're sometimes a leader, sometimes a manager, sometimes a coach, sometimes a consultant. Sometimes you're a trusted advisor. Sometimes you're a hybrid of all the above. And sometimes you're a coder. Sometimes you're a manager. It's all in the mix. But when you can start to articulate what you do naturally, effortlessly, that you don't even notice, then people look up and go, ooh, wow. Because I tell you this, Parham, there are people in the world who I'd be a terrible coach for and you'd be a perfect coach for, and vice versa. And the moment we can help you get really clear about who you are, who your dream clients are, how they think, and who mine are, there's an immediate differentiator. So I'm going to play. I got 4 pages of notes in front of me. I'm going to see how I can speak you into the world right now. I can speak you into the world. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not trying to get the text for your website, although often this becomes the text of a website. I just want to speak you into the world. If this does nothing else than have you hear who you are, which has happened a number of times already, then we've got what I call the first sale. When you're walking into a room to talk to somebody, when you're on a call with someone to talk about what you do, if you are sold on the impact of what you do, if you know you can look back at your life and see, yeah, this is what I do, is what I've always done, then you feel confident from the inside out. And people feel that. And then 50% or more of the sale is done before you've even begun.
I think first I need to get the hang of the British accent.
This is recorded. You can listen to it many times. Or just turn on Otter, which will transcribe it in real time. All right, let's play. Most people know me for my work in the world of software engineering. I've created a deployment tool that's world-class. As a manager in this field, I'm acknowledged for making people feel recognized, want to grow, and do more. I'm gifted in translating what managers want so that developers can understand, and what developers need so that managers understand. And what some people know, but not everyone, the first time they come across me is that I'm blind, and I've been blind from birth. So unlike most of the people I meet, I see the world differently. I was born in Iran 30 years ago. I was the only blind child in my family. And I spent most of my childhood fighting to prove that I could do this by myself. This strong, independent streak in me met time and again with overprotectiveness. I had overprotective parents who loved me, a family who loved me, but they wanted to wrap me up in cotton wool. In fact, at 8 years old, I realized they're doing this because they care almost too much. And that was in some ways hard to bear. It would have been easier if they didn't care. And the solution I came up with as a youngster is I'll prove myself. Because if I finally prove myself, then you'll believe in me. The trouble is, it never worked. Because every single time I proved myself, there was another level to get to. And proving myself became a habit in itself. It was an empty game because I never really proved myself to me. In fact, one thing I never really learned to ask was, what do I want? That question, what do you want, is so powerful and so simple and so profound, but I never learned to ask it because I was on the game of proving myself rather than checking in, what do I want? By 14, I was a little more introverted. I couldn't handle that feeling of pity I'd get from other people. I withdrew. And I found this world of computing and technology. And I loved it because it was a world that I could play. I literally created a game for the blind, a game that could be played without the visual stimulus that's needed in most computer games. It was an audio game. I began to love computer science and software engineering. But what I heard again and again and again is, Parham, no one's done this before, so you can't do this. The problem is that no one's done this before is not a reason that it shouldn't be done. In fact, throughout most of human history, the world has moved on every time someone has heard the words, no one's done this before, or you can't, and said, so what? It took me 2 years of working on my parents, fighting my parents, until they began to get worn down and accept that maybe there's a path that I can move on. But by 17, studying was super hard. I'd go into a classroom and all I would hear was the tap, tap, tap on the board of the teacher. But I could go home and I could read and I could devour 3 or 4 books a week because I had a screen reader. And it turns out your ears don't get tired as fast as your eyes do. And I devoured information. In fact, one of the secrets for me growing as fast as I've done is to never stop learning. I've got another secret for how I've moved in life. And it's loopholes. I've had to seek out loopholes because when you're told no one's done this before, you can't do this, then it's obvious you can't take the normal path. So I had to seek out the unusual path, the unorthodox path. I did programming on site. I looked for jobs instead of being taught. I've constantly sought out loopholes to take me sideways. So lesson number 1 of my life is never stop learning. Number 2 is never stop looking for loopholes because they allow you to jump the path that everyone else is on. And lesson number 3 is a little bit more painful. It's that the universe gives you what you ask for. My first job, I was so thrilled when they said yes, that when they'd offered me the job, I said, you can pay me anything. In fact, I'll work for free. And they listened to me and they paid me very little. But it was 2 weeks later that they came to me and said, we want to give you a 5 times increase in salary because we can see what you bring, the value that you bring. I've had an internal script for a long time. I can't do anything or I'm not worth anything. And I've worked for a long time to move beyond that script. There came a moment when I'd finally achieved everything I'd ever wanted. I'd been hired by a big company, flown to Amsterdam, relocated, and I wake up the next morning with a sense of overwhelming sadness. The problem with living into I'll be happy when goals is when you hit them, you're often not as happy as you imagine. Often the happiness is in the struggle along the way more than actually the achievement at the other side of it. Here's what I'm known for in the world of work. 3 views. Number 1, people come first. I really care. And I really have the back of anyone who's on my team, of anyone who works for me. And we live in a world where that's not the case for most people. Most people don't work in an organization or have a job where someone really cares about them or has their back. If you're on my team, people come first and I've got your back. Number 2, everyone's idea matters. That's simple and it's a deep truth, but it's not a truth for most people in most organizations. Most people do not feel heard, but if you're on my team, you will feel deeply heard. I can't promise we'll utilize every idea you have, but people don't care about that if they feel heard. And the third idea, the third truth that I believe in deeply is that while most people think they're motivated by the latest cool stuff, cool technology, they're actually deeply motivated by knowing that they're helping people. If you're working on a team and you know that you help others, that feels really good. There's nothing more motivating than that. Sometimes I'm a leader. Sometimes I'm a manager. Sometimes I'm a coach. I'm always a software engineer. And I always see the world differently. And it turns out that all of those things have become an incredible gift because I know how to help people feel recognized, want to grow, and do more. So if you're looking for someone right now to help you, because you have a big mission in this world, because you need to feel a little bit more recognized, either externally or internally, or you want to grow and do more and accomplish more, then you and I should have a conversation. I'm smiling. I don't know if you can hear a smile. I'm smiling, Parham.
I can hear a smile. Thanks. I can't believe you had so much notes. And yeah, it's great to hear the less humble me.
Nice. Great catch. There's a place for where you're going next, where those lessons that you've learned along the way, you've got to take them to the next level too. So it's time to put humility to one side. But here's the truth. It's not bragging if you've done it. And people want us to lead. They do. People need your help, your guidance, your support right now. And they need a door that they can say, I want to come through. And if you're on the other side of the door saying, I'm a coach, I can help anyone, no one can even hear you through that door. But when there's a sign on the door that says, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is how I see the world, this is where I've struggled, this is where I continue to struggle, and I can help you, some people are going to knock on that door and come through that door. And what we've just done is put your sign out on the door. So this may become the text of a website. It may become the way that you speak. It may become the text of a speech. It doesn't matter. We've just created you. You've got the new avatar for up-leveling to the next level of the game. But just like all computer games, it doesn't stop, right? It's like, oh my God, I thought I'd won that level. I'm at the next level. How am I going to play this one?
Thanks for helping me level up.
Thanks, man. Thanks for trusting me. Appreciate you, Parham.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.